We believe that wealth is a journey, and that this is your jumpstart to trading success. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Traders Mindchat Show. I'm Mike.
And I'm Melissa, and something crazy happened today when I was dropping our daughter Lily off at summer camp.
Okay.
So yesterday was her first day of summer camp, and so today, I had to drop her off at the park, and, as I was leaving, I saw another parent, and I said, "Hi, how are you?" And she looked at me, she's like, "Oh, you have another daughter?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" I turned around, and there's this little girl following me out of the park. And I was like, oh my God. I had to quickly go, grab her and bring her. I found the mom. Thank God she was, freaking out, and everything was fine. But this was a great segue into what we're talking about today, which is about stop loss. Because I was like, wow, we needed somebody to kind of stop that girl at that gate before she thinks I'm her new mom and following me home.
Yeah, stop the loss of a child.
Oh my God.
So
stop loss or stop a trade. I don't know.
Yeah, so stop losses for trading. It's a trading show, right?
But this is a great way that we're going to be talking about for you to think about what are the secrets to setting a stop loss. And there's 5 of them, right, Mike?
So there's 5 secrets to setting stop losses. The reason why I even thought of this broader topic of setting stop losses, I saw this post by Steve Burns on Twitter the other day, and he was giving his rules for stop loss, and got me thinking well, what are some of the things that I look for in setting stop losses? It's a very common topic. A lot of people think that, why should I even bother setting a stop loss? Mm-hmm. The algorithms or the broker or the boogeyman is just hunting for those stop losses and trying to steal my shares, and then price just rallies in my face. So there's really 5 things that I like to do when I'm setting a stop loss.
Okay, so what's the first one?
The first one is to really plan ahead. Right, so what often happens is that you could execute a trade, right? I'm talking about newer traders, and you tend to think where am I going to get out of this thing if price starts to move against me? And by setting it up ahead of time, right, by first trying to figure out, where am I going to exit this thing if I'm wrong, before you even get into the trade, that's already putting you ahead of the curve. So that's the first thing. Mm-hmm. The second thing is, and this is the part where it's going to help to prevent you from being shaken out at just odd places and seeing it rally in your face, right? The second thing is to start to look for where is that stop loss going to line up on multiple time frames. So
what do you mean by time frame?
Great question. So when there's different types of charts that you could look at, different time frames. So you could look at charts on a monthly time frame where each bar is just 1 month. You could look at weekly charts where it's just 1 week, daily, etc. down the line. So let's say I'm going to enter a trade and it's on a daily time frame. You with me so far? Or?
I think so. I'm following. Daily time frame.
Right. So I'm looking to see if price breaks out of this level. And if it falls back below here, then I want to be out. Mm-hmm. Right, and so for anybody on the podcast, I'm raising and lowering my arm. You can't see it, but hopefully it still makes sense. But so this bottom part where it's the floor, right? You don't want price to fall back through here. And so if you have a couple of different layers, so let's say this price down here makes sense on the daily time frame, but it also makes sense on the weekly time frame, and it also makes sense on the monthly time frame. Then you've got 3 solid layers where if price falls below that, then there's eyeballs that we're looking at the monthly, that we're looking at the weekly, and we're looking at the daily, is saying that this is a floor, and price should not fall below that, and if it does, then you've got problems. So when that happens, price it's more meaningful, right? It's almost like if you were building a foundation on a house, right? And you could either build that foundation out of cardboard, you could build it out of plywood, or you could build it out of cement, right? Like you want the cement because you have all those different layers there.
Reminds me of the Three Little Pigs story I just read to Lily this week. So no, it definitely makes sense. You don't want anything to blow down your house. So yeah, having that steady foundation is essential. So looking at monthly, daily, and weekly time frames, that'll help solidify that foundation.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good analogy. The Three Little Pigs thing. Jeez. Anyway,
Big bad wolf is gonna come.
Yes.
Big bad market.
Yeah, exactly. The big bad market is going to come down and blow down your financial house.
Oh my God. So what do you do then? So once you have that set, that floor.
Right. So that's part of setting the stop loss. You want to have multiple time frames, but you want to have other things setting up that floor too to make sure that it's strong. Mm-hmm. So you want to look for other layers of confluence, right? Like other things that line up with that spot where you're building the floor. So this is where people tend to run into a little trouble because they're like, oh, like let me throw in every kind of indicator under the sun, right? The things they might not even look at. So when it comes to indicators, I think that it's important to be consistent with whatever you use. So whether you're using moving averages, Bollinger Bands, VWAP, or any multitude of indicators, to be consistent and see, like, does it line up with the layer that you are considering?
I hate to say this, but what is an indicator? I'm really taking this back here for any beginners out there. But what is it?
You ever look at a stock chart and you see the little squiggly lines on some of the charts? Like anything that's in addition to the price bars, like, so you have the price bars, the individual price bars. You often have volume at the bottom. Come to think of it, like those themselves are indicators. It's like reading characters in a story, right? So you have your main characters, right? Your main characters are price and volume, for the most part, at least for me. Then you have your supporting characters in your story. Those are the indicators. They're helping to tell the story. They're giving a clearer picture of the story, but they're not essential to the outcome.
I gotcha. Okay, like they still add to the story, but they don't have to indicate like where you need to go with the stop loss.
Right, and so there might be one set of characters in my story. You might have a different set of characters in your story, but we're all kind of leading to the same place.
Gotcha.
So the characters in my story, the indicators, are...
Actually, it's a cool name, like Transformers, the Indicators.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like the Decepticons.
Yeah, you have Optimus up there.
Sorry, going off topic here. But yes, okay, so the indicators.
Yeah, so for me, I like to use a handful of moving averages.
Okay.
And the more moving averages that line up at a certain spot where, like if price is up here, and if price has to fall to get down to this stop loss down here, if it has to fall through multiple moving averages, I think that that's better for the stop loss because there's some people that'll start to buy at a short-term moving average. There's some people that'll start to buy at an intermediate term, and there's people that'll start to buy at a longer term. So if it has to fall through all that, and if it does and it keeps on going, then that means that you've got a real problem, and you don't want to be in that trade anymore.
Okay.
Like the stop loss should get you out of the trade once the trade is broken.
Okay.
So that's why you want multiple layers of confluence, multiple time frames, and let's see what else do I have on here.
So those were the top three so far. So we have the multi-time frames, number one. Number two, layers of confluence.
Right. Planning ahead. And I actually mentioned number 4 over here, which was they should tell you that the trade is actually breaking down. Right, so you don't want to have your stop loss kind of hanging out in no man's land, right? And that's what happens to so many traders when they're trying to figure out, like, oh, where do I place my stop loss? Or stop losses are bullshit. I'm not going to even bother with them, or I'm just going to keep a mental stop, right? If you're somebody that's watching this and you have a lot of experience and you're using mental stops, then that's okay. But for somebody that's new that doesn't know, having something where it's just like, okay, I know the level, and when an alert goes off, I'm gonna be there to click a button. Like it's real hard to not psych yourself out of those for a new person. Like, oh, like it's gonna come back, and then like 10 points later, it doesn't come back, and now you're saddled with a much bigger loss.
Yeah. So if someone has that mental stop, like they have to constantly be in front of the computer.
Oh yeah,
to know
constantly be in front of the computer or have your alert on your phone, and that's where like people just are constantly checking their phone. Well, I actually spoke to Stu about this the other day. Stu is one of the coaches at Mara, and one of the things that he wrote this great blog post about the decisions and trading decisions, and you could have like 1,400 decision points in a day if you have X amount of trades on, you are checking your trades, you need to make a decision on those trades, and yeah, like the frequency that you're going to check those trades, then like all that multiplies, and it ended up being something crazy. Like there's 1,400 decision points for that type of trader in a given day. You're gonna have so much mental fatigue that's where it makes it real easy to make a mistake.
No, I love it. And we'll include the blog post link in the show notes because it really is such an amazing blog. But this is bringing me back to the kid example. I know we were saying, what does this have to do with stocks? But you're right. Like if we don't have some security guard there, then you have to rely on one of these parents to be able to stop that kid from going into the street. Like, you don't know it. What if I wasn't there or somebody else didn't tell me there was a kid following me? Something drastic could have happened.
Right. So like that, and that's really the purpose of the stop loss. So like it's your insurance against like the trade blowing up your account.
Yeah. No, I think that it's essential to have something to stop, because if not, then what if you do get distracted? What if something does take you away from the computer? You don't have your phone on you, your battery dies. Then what is going to prevent you from having a more serious loss?
Yeah, right, exactly. So these are the things that go into setting a stop loss well. And then the fifth thing is like you're setting it at a low probability. If all if the top four things line up, then you're setting your stop loss at a place where it's unlikely to get triggered unless if something actually is wrong. And yeah, there will be times where your stop loss is triggered and price rallies in your face. Welcome to Wall Street. That's part of the game. But if you find that that's happening all the time, then you want to review the previous four points of setting stop losses.
Absolutely, because maybe your stop loss is set too high. Like even if you are looking at the weekly, daily, and monthly time frames, maybe you have to review it. Maybe saying that maybe you have to set it a little bit lower. And then maybe just be a little bit more attuned to the market that week. The time that when you do lower, just so you have a little bit more say as if you have to sell.
Right. So here's the bonus thing, right? Like we wrote down a bonus thing over here too. Well, once the stop loss is set, once a trader finds, okay, I'm going to set my stop loss at X, then you also kind of have an idea of where you're going to enter this trade too. The closer those 2 points end up being your stop loss and your entry point, that's going to affect how much size you can have on a particular trade. Right, so let's say you find a trade and you're planning to enter at 100 and your stop loss is at 90 on trade A, and you want to risk, let's say, $1,000 on this trade. If you're going to be able to buy a certain number of shares, right? If you have your trade at the next trade B also at 100, but your stop loss is going to be at 97. Then you're able to buy significantly more shares and still risk that same $1,000. Or 100 or a 10 or whatever amount it is that you want to risk, you'll be able to do that in that way. So by having a stop loss at a spot where it's a significant level, where it lines up across multiple time frames, you have multiple layers of confluence, and if it's triggered, you don't want to be in that trade anymore because like the trade is actually breaking down, then that's something where if you're able to find a good entry point on this trade, then you're setting yourself up for a high probability, high reward to low risk idea.
No, I think that's a great bonus point. I love that we give these bonuses. I love it. Like, we go into it not even realizing we have these bonuses, but this is amazing.
This time we did. It was actually written on the paper. Yeah.
I didn't remember. But for you guys get to benefit. So this is awesome.
All right.
So, so for people who have not set their stop loss, your recommendation is to go through these 5 plus 6 steps to make sure that they are prepared.
Yeah, like these are the first 5 things that I would consider doing when figuring out how to set your stop loss. If you need help there, this is something that we talk about all the time in our Discord channel, in our boot camps. We've actually done a boot camp on this specifically. So how do you get that? You go to the Mara Elite program.
It's on marawealth.com, and we'll have the link in the show notes as well, so you guys can check it out.
All right, perfect.
So if you like this episode, please give us a like, thumbs up, and we have more amazing shows coming up, so stay tuned and be sure to subscribe.
All right, thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye, buddy.